sunset, and then we can go as late as we want. Here, it needs to be finished. One needs to finish eating before sunset. And also in regard to private matters, so a married couple would abstain from marital intimacy on that Shabbat. Because for private issues, so then Tisha B'Av still does apply to a degree. Dov, are we up and running? Does that seem to be on?
I don't know.
I see a picture.
You see me? Okay.
I see a green light.
I don't know if it's running, but...
Then we're on. Okay, so my thanks to Rabbi Yehuda Spitz from Or Sameach, from whom a very interesting question was posed. And we will work our way around to that question and to resolving that question. But let's begin first. We know that we are in the period known as the 3 weeks. Okay? So what are these 3 weeks? They are 3 weeks that begin with the 17th day of Tammuz, of the month of Tammuz, which is a fast day, and the tragic events which occurred on that day. And at the other end, we have Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the month of Av, another tragic day because of different events that occurred on the 9th of Av. So we will begin with our Mishnah. Okay, the Mishnah is in the tractate of Ta'anit, of fasts.
Thank you.
And there it discusses, we have it both in Hebrew and in English. For those following in the Hebrew, we are above over here, right in the middle of the top line. Chamisha, these are the last couple of lines on Chavav 26a, and then we'll switch over to 26b. Chamisha Dvarim, 5 misfortunes, 5 things, Iru et Avotenu, occurred, befell our fathers, B'Shivasa b'Tammuz, on the 17th day of Tammuz, V'Chamisha b'Tisha B'Av, and 5 events, right, misfortunes, tragic events, tragedies, happened on the 9th of Av. And the Mishnah explains, B'Shivasa b'Tammuz, on the 17th day of Tammuz, so we're here on the first side still, Nishtabru ha-luchot, that is the day that Moshe came down after the miscalculation of the children of Israel. They had calculated that first day that Moshe ascended as the first of the 40 days, but we know, and we'll soon discuss it further in regard to our topic today, the Jewish day begins with the night. So that first day that Moshe ascended did not count as day 1, it was not a complete day. They counted it as day 1. So their day 40 was actually day 39, and with Aaron, they built the golden calf. Moshe comes down the next day, Shiv'asa b'Tammuz, on the 17th day of Tammuz, and Nishtabru haluchot. Secondly, Ubatel hatamid. There was a gezerah decree by the Babylonians or the Romans, first or second temple, that we can no longer bring that sacrifice. Amen. The tamid, the constant, consistent, daily sacrifice that was brought from the time that Solomon, King Shlomo, had built the Beit HaMikdash, that ceased to be offered. Let's go back way before then. From the time the Mishkan was established, the Tamid was brought every day, and at that point it stopped. V'huv ka'aha'ir. This is when the siege was placed upon Yerushalayim, and the walls were breached on the 17th day of Tammuz. V'saraf Apostomus et HaTorah, a general by the name of Apostomus, publicly desecrated and burnt a Sefer Torah. And lastly, V'hu Amad Tselem Beheichel. Actually, there are 2 texts. Ha'amid means, and he placed, meaning Apostomus. Rashi has the text, V'hu Amad, and an idol was placed into the Beit HaMikdash, and that, Rashi learns, was done by Menashe, one of the kings of Judah, who was at least before he did Teshuvah, a tremendous Rasha. B'Tisha B'Av, so those are the 5 events, misfortunes, tragic events of the 17th day of Tammuz. B'Tisha B'Av Nigzal Avoteinu, on Tisha B'Av, that is when the spies returned with their slanderous report about Israel, and we accepted that report about the land of Israel. We cried. I have more sheets. We're carrying sheets? You have enough? We good? Okay. And we cried senseless tears. Well, that we didn't want to enter the land of Israel. On Tisha B'Av, it was Nigzal Avoteinu, it was decreed on our forefathers, Shelo Yikansu La'aretz, that they in fact would not enter the land of Israel. V'charav habayit barishona, and the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. Uba Shniya, and the second temple was also destroyed on the date of Tisha B'Av. V'nilkeda Beitar, which Rashi explains, Ir Gedola, a tremendously large city filled with Jewish people. It was destroyed and the inhabitants were slaughtered. V'nechresha ha'ir, and the city was plowed over.
Excuse me.
Yes.
All these events happened on Tisha B'Av.
Correct.
But the Jews did not go to the land of Israel on Tisha B'Av. Isn't that what you said? That was not...
The children of Israel were still in the desert. We had sent the Meraglim, the spies. They came back with their slanderous... Right. And therefore it was decreed that that whole generation, age 20 and up, would not enter the land of Israel. Okay, we'll go a little bit further. Shabbat shechal Tisha B'Av liot betocha. The Mishnah, when it talks about restrictions leading up to Tisha B'Av, the only thing that it mentions, the starting point, is not what we call the 9 days, which is starting from the start of the month of Av. The starting point of the Mishnah and the Gemara is not the 3 weeks, what we call starting from Shavas Tammuz that we're in the midst of now, but rather the Mishnah and the Gemara only speaks about the week wherein Tisha B'Av falls out. Asami l'saper. At that point, one should not get a haircut. Umi l'chabes, or do laundry. Ubechamishi mutarim, but on Friday it would be allowed out of Mnei Kavod HaShabbat. And Erev Tisha B'Av, our whole thing of not eating meat or drinking wine during the 9 days besides Shabbat. So that's the whole 9 days. The actual mention of meat and wine in the Mishnah is Erev Tisha B'Av, on the eve of Tisha B'Av. Lo yochal adam shnei tavshilin. That's what we call the Seuda HaMafseket, the separating meal, the last meal that we have before Tisha B'Av starts. And traditionally we sit on the floor and we have bread and water and an egg dipped in ashes. That does not apply this year. We don't have that this year since it is Shabbat. So we don't have that type of Seuda. We eat normally on Shabbat, but we will just stop eating again by sunset. Not eating past sunset like we normally do on a Shabbat. So at that meal, lo yochal adam, you should not have 2 cooked items, and lo yochal basar v'lo yishta yayin, and one should not eat meat nor drink wine. Rabbinically, based on the Rishonim, the earlier commentaries of the Gemara, so we have expanded, and we have a period known as the 3 weeks. And for Ashkenazim, more than Sfardim, there are certain restrictions that we have in order for us to feel the devastation. So we have different restrictions that progressively add up as we make our way until Tisha B'Av itself. During the 3 weeks where we are now, so the restrictions include not getting married, not getting haircuts unless there's a very specific need, refraining from public music and dancing, not putting oneself in a dangerous situation, right? Why would anyone put themselves in a dangerous situation? What that means is, if you want to try skydiving, so one would not decide to do that during the 3 weeks. We put it off a little bit.
What about if you have pleasure in reading? Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine, right? And also on a new item, making shehechianu or not making shehechianu. Okay. Again, this is the Ashkenazic customs. The Sephardim are a lot more closely aligned with what the actual Mishnah and Gemara says, and the only thing they really have is Shavua Shechalbo, is the week wherein Tisha B'Av falls out. And this year, when it falls out on Shabbat and is pushed to Sunday, so according to the Sephardic custom, there is no Shavua Shechalbo, there is no week wherein Tisha B'Av falls out. So basically they have Tisha B'Av. Right? Ashkenazim, I don't want to say we're more gloom and doom, but we're more gloom and doom. We are. You know, it's fascinating. There is one of the Shabbat Zmirot that we sing. So the Ashkenaz version, and usually the Zmirot are the same, Ashkenaz and Sfard. But in my Yedidus, no, not my Yedidus, in one of the Shabbos afternoon Zemiros, will come to me in a moment. So we say, speaking about Shabbos, Hamit Ablim Bo, those who mourn on Shabbat, Achor Nisogim, we fall backwards. You know, we're taking steps, we're moving backwards instead of moving forward. They don't mention mourning on Shabbos. They say Hasmeichim Bo, those who rejoice in Shabbos. I think Bo Mit Amgim, something like that. All right, we're talking about don't mourn on Shabbos. We're talking about mourning. Rejoice, enjoy Shabbos. Anyhow, we have more restrictions leading up to it. The question that comes about, that is a very interesting question we'll deal with soon, we'll see some of the sources, is when do the 3 weeks begin? What's the question? What are the two possibilities? It certainly starts on the 17th day of Tammuz. The question is, does it start at the night of the 17th day of Tammuz? Or does it start on the morning of the 17th day of Tammuz? Why should it start at the night, and why should it start at the morning? What do you say?
Erev. It's always Erev.
Good.
Jewish,
Thank you. Right? Erev Boker. Jewish events always begin, the day begins the night before. So if the 17th day of Tammuz is the start of the 3 weeks, so then when will all of those restrictions, meaning, right, if you want to have a wedding, and this is a question posed to Rav Moshe Feinstein, can you have a wedding the night of Shavasa B'Tammuz? According to Bruce, absolutely not. Right? The 70th day of Tammuz, Jewish days begin the night before, the 3 weeks begin with the 17th of Tammuz, it begins the night before, have your wedding in the afternoon, on the 16th, not going into the 17th. Another way of looking at it, though, is the 17th is a fast day. And when does the fast begin? Only in the morning. The only 2 fast days which begin the night before are Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av. So the whole fast, the whole event is beginning the next morning. Right? So it really breaks down almost to a question, are the 3 weeks a byproduct of the fast day of the 17th of Tammuz? So therefore it will start concurrent with the start of the fast? Or is it an independent segment of time, 3 weeks? And during that 3 weeks we have a fast day. And that fast day begins in the morning. But that's not part and parcel of this 3-week component. That's the two ways of looking at it. And there was a situation that was posed to the great posek Rav Moshe Feinstein about that very situation. There was a couple who wanted to get married, and the only available date was on the 17th day of Tammuz at night. Are they allowed to get married then or not? So I have it. This is only in Hebrew, but it's on the second side of the sheet. You need one over there, Paul? Let's go down to Paul, please. It's the extra one. Thank you. Im Rishoyin Laso Nisuin. Are we allowed to make a wedding Ba'or Liyud Zayin B'Tammuz on the night of the 17th of Tammuz? Nishalti, I was asked, Rav Moshe writes, Miyididi, from my dear one, HaGaon, Rav Menachem Polak, Bishnat Tavshid Yin Shechal Shivas B'Tammuz B'Yom Aleph. Okay, interesting. There, Shivas B'Tammuz fell out on a Sunday. Not like this year that it fell out on Shabbos and got pushed off to Sunday. There it actually fell out on a Sunday. Im yesh lasot nusum b'leil motzei Shabbos Kodesh or Liyud Zayin B'Tammuz. Can they make the wedding on a Saturday night? It's interesting. Nowadays, we don't really hear, we don't have many Jewish weddings on a Saturday night. When I was a teenager, I used to make some pocket money by working for Charmel Caterers. That was in Forest Hills, Universal Forest Hills. And we'd have weddings on a Saturday night. I was earning
After
that.
Shabbat,
After Shabbat, yeah.
How can that mix?
In the winter, correct. Like Paul said, in the winter when Shabbos ends at 5:30, you have at 8:30. You call the wedding for 7:30, 8:30. Yeah. Then I was earning minimal wage, which was then $3.35 an hour. And if I had a Shabbos Kiddush and a Saturday night wedding and a Sunday wedding, I could walk away from that weekend with $100. Which in those days,
That was a lot of money.
that was a load of money.
A lot of money.
That was the days that when I was a teenager, my brother was in dental school and single. I think he's still single. And in dental school, I think he was married. And there was a snowstorm, school was canceled. So I woke up early. When I had school, I didn't wake up early. But when school was canceled, I woke up early to go out to shovel some snow. My brother said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to shovel snow for the neighbors." He said, "You get paid?" I said, "Sure." He said, "You make good money?" I said, "Yeah, we can make a couple $100." So my brother, almost 9.5 years older than me, said, "Can I come?" And we worked together. But they used to have weddings Saturday night. So the question was, on a Saturday night, when Shivas B'Tammuz is on Sunday, can they have the wedding or not? To l'chora, or Moshe, it seems talui. Zev machloket rishonim. This is dependent upon two different opinions amongst the commentators of the Gemara. Does the fast matchil b'layla? Does the fast begin at night? And we'll say anenu b'or hatanit, and we'll add into the Amidah that paragraph about a fast at the night, or not? To the Baal Ma'or, according to the opinion of the Baal Ma'or, we don't say it because the Tanis begins in the morning, and therefore all the laws of the 3 weeks would also begin, he says, in the morning. V'yesh laniat aiti raya gadol dvarav. And Rav Moshe says, I see a really strong proof to his words. The Gemara Pesachim says that he says, I found, Rosamond Yaakov, one of the sages of the Talmud says, I find that the Rabbanan differentiate between the night and the day when it comes to a fast day. Interesting. That they differentiate between the night and the day when it comes to a fast day. Which means the night is not considered to be part of the fast at all. Because if it was part of the fast day, but the actual prohibition of eating only started in the morning, that's not a differentiation between day and night. Meaning, on a regular Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah, when do we blow the shofar? At night or by day? Can we blow it at night?
No.
No. Are we differentiating between day and night? No. It's all Rosh Hashanah, but the mitzvah of shofar is only during the day. Right? Lulav and etrog. It's all Sukkot. We're not differentiating between the night and the day. It's all Sukkot, but the mitzvah of lulav and etrog is during the day. So if it was all Tanit, all fast day, but the prohibition of eating only begins during the day, we wouldn't say we're differentiating between day and night. So if we're differentiating between day and night, Moshe says that shows, if that's the term that we use to describe it, that shows that the night is not the fast day at all. And then he says the second to last paragraph, even those who argue with Baal Ma'or, who say that the fast day begins at night, they would agree that you can have a wedding the night. Why? Because when is the clear showing of the morning? That only starts during the day. And besides that, he says that this is not found amongst the whole 3 weeks, is not found amongst in the Gemara, and therefore we would allow it's a minhag, and therefore we are lenient when it comes to minhag, and he allowed the wedding. However,
in the 3 weeks you can have a wedding?
No. On the night of the Shivasa B'Tammuz,
Okay.
Rav Moshe said, when there's a need, ideally schedule it prior to that. When there's a need, you could have the wedding. And he said they could have the wedding that Saturday night. Now this year, where the 17th of Tammuz was actually on Shabbos and got pushed off to Sunday, then clear of Moshe says you could not have the wedding then Saturday night, because then you're definitely within the 3 weeks already, just that the actual fasting got pushed off to Sunday. That is his ruling. How about haircuts then? So there are those that said, well, if Rav Moshe says the 3 weeks starts for weddings in the morning, then so too for haircuts. If a person needs to get a haircut for whatever reason, couldn't get a haircut beforehand, so be able to get a haircut also the night of Shivasa B'Tammuz. Others say that no, a wedding is a big deal. A haircut is a haircut. You can have a real need for the wedding. You don't want to push off the groom and bride will soon see a real story. You don't want to push it off for 3 weeks. But a haircut, all right, so you look a little shaggier. Right? What can you do? Right? Rav Moshe actually says, in a later teshuvah, Rav Moshe says that even when it comes to a haircut, if there is a big need for it, not sure exactly what that would mean, but there is a big need for it, then one could get their haircut on the night of the 17th. A question was sent to Rabbi Yehuda Spitz from Or Sameach. This is his article I am working off of. Now, the contemporary consensus in Israel is not like that. And not only haircuts, but weddings also will not be had on the night of Shivasa B'Tammuz. It's considered part and parcel of the 3 weeks. And this seems to follow the opinion of the Chidah, who said that even though the walls of Jerusalem were breached during the daytime of the 17th of Tammuz, but the preceding night was also time of war, and the tragedy began already the night before, and therefore our sages were lenient about eating and drinking, that we only abstain in the morning, but the 3 weeks they hold begins the night before. Recently, Rabbi Spitz received an interesting halachic question. This is the story. Someone was about to get married on the 16th of Tammuz, and the night of the wedding would be the 17th of Tammuz, meaning they'd have the actual wedding prior to sunset, and then the celebration would go on afterwards. To avoid problems, he made sure everything was ready. that the chuppah will be before sundown to ensure that the wedding will be permissible according to all opinions. Well, believe it or not, sometimes things don't go the way that we planned. I know it's not happened to any of us, but that's what happens. And things got held up due to the fault of the caterer, the hall owner. Well, the chuppah would not start until after nightfall. And the Baal Simcha, following the more stringent opinions, refused to, I will not march down that aisle. The hall owner refused to reimburse them. And he said, running late happens at weddings. Right? Things run late at weddings. And there are many poskim who say that you could have the wedding at night. And therefore, right, I'm not going to reimburse you. It's your fault for refusing to go ahead with the wedding. And therefore, I'm entitled to my payment. That was the question that was posed to the author of Yehuda Spitz. Now,
as part of a bet din, or
I think so.
Huh.
Yeah. Now, there's an interesting halachic question that comes up in Shulchan. We have them both in Hebrew and in English. Are you allowed to get married on Shabbos?
No, you're not. You
No.
mix up two simchas.
Okay. So the Shulchan Aruch, have it both in Hebrew and in English, in the laws of Shabbat says, Velo mekadshin. We don't do kiddushin. Now, that's actually referring to the first stage of marriage. We do them back to back. There's kiddushin and there's nisuin. Kiddushin is giving the ring, harem mekudeshetli. Nisuin is being under the chuppah and having the sheva bracha. We do them back to back. Shulchan Aruch says we don't do mekudshin. We don't mekadshin. We don't do kiddushin. The Ramah says v'yesh matirin lekadesh. There are those that will allow kiddushin on Shabbos. Heicha de'ein lo isha ubanim. When a person doesn't yet have a wife, right? Talking about when people could marry even more than one wife, right? And for our what's relevant to us, someone who's not married and doesn't have children, they're allowed to get married. Not only the first stage of marriage, chuppah, it is also allowed. Even though we don't hold like that, we don't hold like those who allow it, we can rely on that in extenuating circumstances. We'll soon see what he means. Ki gadol kavod habrios. We don't want people to be embarrassed. Kavod habriot, honoring, giving honor to a person, is gadol, is a tremendously important factor, aspect of Judaism. Kamosh regilin, like it happened. They couldn't work out all of the agreement. Yom Vav on Friday, Ad Halayla, and now it's already Shabbos. Shabbos. Then we will have the marriage on Friday night. They already prepared for the Su'udah, for the meal, Ulanasuin, and for the marriage. V'havi biyush. It'll be very, very humiliating, embarrassing. L'kala u'l'chatan, for the bride and the groom. They're getting all ready for their wedding, and now, no, sorry. You have to wait until Saturday night. We don't do that. It'll be an embarrassment to them. Im lo yikanes az, if they will not get married then. So therefore, even though we don't hold like the opinion that says you can get married on Shabbos, and we say you can get married on Shabbos, but when everything is all set and things got delayed, and therefore you're going to ruin the meal, ruin the simcha, humiliate the groom and the bride, then they will get married on Shabbos. Certainly, ideally, you want to avoid coming to that situation. But once that situation has come about, then you go ahead with the marriage.
What would cause that situation to come about? What circumstance?
We scheduled it Friday afternoon. There was plenty of time, right? And then things happened, right? And now all of a sudden it's Friday night. It happens. Ideally, don't schedule for Friday. But if you did, and you scheduled with enough time, and then these things happened, well, let's look at our situation over here. They scheduled it for the 16th day of Tammuz, for the afternoon, the late afternoon. And then it got later. The fault of the caterer. But, things often run late. Who's responsible? So, he replied as follows. The monetary issues, he said, should depend on what was the contract. What was the agreement that was made? Meaning, if in the agreement they expressly stipulated that if it will run late due to a negligence, mistake on the part of the caterer, they should get reimbursed, then if that's clearly in the contract, no question. They must be reimbursed. But if not, and the parents really felt that it was so crucially important that the marriage happen before nightfall, then, and he wants to be machmir, he wants to be adopt the stricter opinions that you can't have the wedding then, they shouldn't have taken the hall in the first place. Things run late sometimes. Don't book your wedding for the afternoon before the 17th of Tammuz. Yes, Steve?
It's like people who schedule an airplane trip to leave on Friday. And similarly, things can be delayed.
Yeah.
And you have no control over it.
Yeah. And when a person is planning a trip, depending if it's domestic or international, right, one should be careful to leave enough leeway that, exactly. But either way, once they were there, and the bride is in her beautiful gown, and the groom is there in his, whatever it is, beautiful suit, tux, whatever it might be. So then, to pull the plug and say, no, you're not getting married, was a tremendous mistake. And the Baal Simcha, the parents, or whichever parent it was, whoever it was, they were at fault. And he says this is a classic example of a chumrah which leads to a kula. Sometimes a person wants to be very strict on halacha, and their strictness leads to them doing something very, very wrong. Over here, that was the case. Halacha has many dispensations for a groom and a bride. And sticking to your strict interpretation, that's great for you. Right? But in the name of halacha is wrong. Especially, like we said before, that in the Gemara, there is no mention. In the Gemara itself, there is no mention of the 3 weeks. It is something that we've accepted upon ourselves. It is a minhag. Now, he conferred with one of those opinions that I mentioned before, contemporary in Israel, who says absolutely no marriages the night of Shavasa B'Tammuz. Absolutely no haircuts. It all starts with the night. And he conferred with him in this situation what should have been done. And he said absolutely, even though he personally holds you should not have marriages on the night of 17th of Tammuz, but in this situation where it was planned for the 16th and it ran late and the meal is ready and the groom and bride are ready and everything is ready, they should have gone ahead with the wedding. and the parents who pulled out, who canceled, they were in the wrong. And from a monetary point of view, the caterer has no obligation to return the money to them. And he's the one who cited this halacha that we learned together in Shulchan Aruch over here. Right? Certainly not getting married on Shabbos is a much more widely accepted. There's one opinion that allows it, and halacha, we don't follow that opinion. And yet, when everything is all set for the groom and bride, we would go ahead with it on Shabbos. If that's the case, on Shabbos, then certainly on the night of Shivasa B'Tammuz, not that we will schedule it for them, but if it was already all set for the 16th and it got delayed, certainly they should have gone ahead with the marriage. Right? Kavod habrios. Right? Giving honor to a person is, we say, Gadol Kavod habrios. Very, very great, very important is this concept of Kavod habrios.
So, in a case of combat or war or extreme stress, say, a very low-key Kukah was scheduled for Motzei Shabbat. You know, it was still a very nice simcha. And then word came that soldiers were coming. Could you move it forward down to Shabbos afternoon?
It would. I would imagine a similar thing, right? When it is Kavod habrios, right, and if you wait till Saturday night, there won't be a wedding, or who knows if there'll be a wedding. Yes, I would imagine that we would also pull it back.
Could you
Yeah.
repeat, kavod? I know a kavod.
Kavod?
I know what habriot. What is that? That part I don't.
Briot is the creations.
Creation. Oh.
Right.
Like Bereshit.
So
Right.
honor
Right.
creation.
Meaning a human being is referred to as a bria.
Oh, okay.
Right? Kavod habriot, and I think encoded in that is when you recognize that this person is a creation, right? And then he or she is the child of the Creator. So certainly that helps motivate us,
To give
right?
kavod.
Right, to make sure that we do give kavod habrios, to give honor to
But,
God's
uh,
creations.
But human beings make these mistakes apparently, so it.
Oh, we sure do. We sure do, right? And listen, certainly Kavod habrios also has to do with when someone makes a mistake, helping them step out of it, right, in a somewhat dignified fashion, when we can. Yes, Dov.
Was it mentioned, I guess there was 5 things that happened that either...
We started with that, the Mishnah.
5, right?
5 on Tisha,
If
yeah.
you look at the 5, I guess, you can see it started at a very, very holy place in the Kodesh Kodeshim, and slowly went out like a ripple effect. So what happened there actually affected the whole world.
Interesting. But with all of this, we shouldn't get, when it comes to a fast day, so the Shulchan Aruch, the Mishnah Berurah actually quotes the Rambam. Maimonides writes, when it comes to a fast day, the main thing is not the fasting. The main thing is the introspection that fasting is supposed to bring about. And I would say in a similar vein, when it comes to the 3 weeks and the 9 days in Tisha B'Av, right? All of these restrictions that we have and the increasing restrictions as we get closer to Tisha B'Av, it's meant to help us focus on what we lost, and it's hard for us to feel that because we never lived in a world with a Beit HaMikdash. But sometimes the greatest tragedy is that you don't even know what you're missing. And to help us focus on that we're living in a world where we and the world are so distant and detached from God, and that's what we are mourning. And all of these things that we do, we shouldn't just focus on what we do, but also make sure that we are trying our best to feel what is meant, the feelings that they are meant to to bring about, to engender. Okay, we'll call it over here. Okay, Dov,
One
wanna?
question, Joe.
Sure.
About fasting. So, supposing you have found that you